Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today.
Really excited to have a very sweet show for you all today. We've got our good friends from the Kentucky Maple Syrup Association going to be talking all about Kentucky Maple Days and that sweet art of making maple syrup. On today's show, we have Mr. John Duvall. John is the current president of the Kentucky Maple Syrup Association. John, always good seeing you.
Glad to be here today again, Billy.
Excellent. We also have Mr. Jeff Webb with us, and Jeff is also one of the officers of the Kentucky Maple Syrup Association. He's got a presentation we're going to be showing here shortly on basically making maple syrup. And then if we can get him on, Mr. Richard Hines, another Kentucky Maple Syrup Association leader, is going to be talking about participating in Kentucky Maple Days. So, John, this weather has to be pretty exciting for a lot of folks when it comes to maple syrup, right?
It sure is. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, we're ready for summer. Bring back the heat." But this weather is perfect for maple syrup season. Right now, we're all froze up. Unfortunately, even maple syrup season is froze up. But once that temperature starts climbing, boy, that sap's going to start running.
Yeah, I was just wondering, as some of those days we were kind of bumping above, freezing, I was just thinking about all that sap just flowing across the state through all the lines and through the buckets and everything. It's a pretty exciting time, I know, for a lot of folks. So, you all have also been really busy. The Kentucky Maple Syrup Association has been really busy. You had a great maple school back in November, and a lot of interest in maple here in the state. So, tell us a little bit about what's going on with the Kentucky Maple Syrup Association and, maybe any message from the association to either potential or future members.
Okay, so the Kentucky Maple Syrup Association, we are growing each year. Our big thing is educating the new members and also our current members, really getting education out there to let people know that maple syrup is a possibility in Kentucky. Just a few years ago, I had no idea that maple syrup was even a possibility in Kentucky until I met Seth Long, our former president, down in Letcher County. And the very first Kentucky Maple Days, I went down to his farm and learned more about it. And ever since I got hit by the sugar bug, is what some of us say.
Yeah.
You get bitten by the sugar bug, and once that happens, it's hard to get away from it. But it's a sweet reward, so to speak. The association, again, we're trying to get education out there, really promote maple syrup as another commodity in the state. It used to be something back when the settlers and the Native Americans, first started this country. They were making maple syrup, and the learning of how to make it almost got lost. People kind of stopped doing that, but there's a trend of people starting to homesteading. And people are learning how to bring back what was almost lost. So we're using our friends from other states who've continuously been making maple syrup to help educate our local people of how you can make maple syrup. I think last summer or the summer before, we only had 16 members in our association, and we're over 40 members now, which awesome. Is great. We've really more than doubled in a short period. And, we've got a lot of people out there who are still learning. It's a process.
It is.
You can't learn everything at once. It's a trial by error type process. And, here in the near future, we hope to have lots of producers across the state who are very experienced and can share their story with everybody across the state.
Yeah, there's no doubt that experience can be such a great teacher, John. And, one of the things I really appreciated getting to see some of these operations is really the diversity of approaches, right? It really allows that farmer ingenuity to kind of kick in, and you see people coming up with different approaches to some of the challenges that they may be facing on their own property. And, while it may be simple to basically try to get the sap from the tree and then boil it down to make syrup, there's surely a lot that goes into that as well. And it is a lot of hard work. It really is. And so I think people need to understand that, the amount of labor that goes into that, the amount of time, and that can really explain why, it may seem costly, but it's really not that costly given how much effort goes into it. And it's such a wonderful product. It really is. So
it sure is.
Yeah. And, I'm so excited and happy for the maple syrup producers here in the state, and that you all are kind of coalescing together and have such a strong presence. And, I would encourage others, if you're thinking about maple syrup on your own property, join the Kentucky Maple Syrup Association. It's a great group of like-minded folks, and they're really willing to share with one another. I've always been impressed with that. They'll share whatever they can to help you be successful. And speaking of being successful, I think, Mr. Webb, I've got your presentation loaded up. If you would like to kind of go over that, I'd be happy to advance the slides for you right now. And you can tell us a little bit about the basics of making maple syrup. So I'll go ahead and get that shared with the audience.
Maple syrup is pure maple sap at about 2% sugar content, with enough water removed to get to about a 67% sugar concentration. And it takes a whole lot of boiling to remove that much water. In fact, it takes about 42 gallons of water removal to make a gallon of syrup. If you have 43 gallons of sap, that's what it takes to make a gallon of syrup. And USDA has some standards to this, and typically what they say is sugar content should be a minimum of 66% and maximum 68.9%. And this is called bricks, from 66 to 68.9. And if you don't mind, go to the next slide, Billy.
All right. What do you need to make maple syrup?
So what do you need? Next slide, you should see maple trees.
Yes.
You need what do you need? You need maple trees, of course. In Kentucky, there's about 13 different types of maple trees. The more common ones that are used for making maple syrup typically is the sugar maple, of course. But there's a red maple, a box elder, which I don't know where the name came from. It doesn't say maple, but it is actually in the Acer gender or genus of maples. And then there's a silver maple and a black maple. Tappable trees are typically trees that are larger than 8 to 9 inches diameter at chest height. And if you look on the number of trees that there are in Kentucky from a 2017 Kentucky tree survey by the U.S. Forest Service, the maples there's about 110 million trees out there that's tappable, and the red maple gets to 102, and then it pretty much drops off drastically from that. So that's kind of where we're at on trees. So how do you identify a maple tree? Should be next slide.
All right.
If you're not sure how to ID them, go online and get a good book or get somebody that knows what they're doing with identifying maple trees. And it's easy to confuse some of them. I've personally confused a white oak with a maple tree, but quickly though, look at the leaves of the sugar and the red. They're kind of like the Canadian flag symbol. In fact, the Canadian flag symbol is a sugar maple leaf, and the red maple is similar to that, except it's got a little bit sharper lobes and serrated edges on it. The box elder has 3 leaflets on it to make the leaf, and it kind of looks like poison ivy leaf to me. When I was a kid, that's what we used to call them, was a poison ivy tree. But it's certainly not a poison ivy tree. It is a maple tree. And if you look at the next slide, we should see, is that pictures there?
Yes.
Okay. Well, if one good identification for maple trees, especially the winter time when all the leaves are gone, one, you can look down. If you think you find a maple tree, look down on the ground and look at the leaves. They'll be brown and dead and everything, but you can still tell that they're a maple leaf. But another good way is look at the branches. The branches up in the upper left-hand corner of the slide, they're opposing branches. The leaflets and the branches will be opposing each other. There's not too many other trees out there that do that. One is the ash, and another is buckeye, another one's dogwood, but all of those have a lot of different bark and a lot different structure to the tree. So that's one good way. If you look at the bottom two slides, on the left is the sugar maple tree, or sugar maple leaf. On the right is you can see it's similar to the sugar maple, but it's got the sharper lobes and serrated edges on it. If you look up on the center slide, that's a box elder there. And box elders typically have a lot of small side branches all the way down to the base of the trunk, down towards the ground. Kind of just a trashy looking tree, so to speak, I guess. On the right side, there's a maple tree that I have tapped for where I've selected tubing and I'm stringing different trees together with tubing coming from where I've tapped everything. From there, once you identify the tree, you need to tap the tree when the sap is flowing. Sap doesn't flow in the summertime. It flows in winter with nights below freezing and days above freezing. Sap will flow up and down the tree's xylem layer with positive and negative pressures, pushing sap out of a tap hole or pulling it back if it's in the negative pressure stage. But in Kentucky, mid-January is about the start of the maple season. Of course, right now, 10 degrees, I think we have at my place. You're not going to get any sap flow. It's going to be frozen. So from there, once you have that tree identified and you're tapping during the sap flow, you need a way to get sap from the tree. Basically, you drill a hole in the tree, somewhere between 1.5 inches and 2 inches deep, 1.75 inches, pretty typical. And you need to drill it with the size that your spout is. And with moderate force, you tap a spout into the tree, not too hard or you'll split the wood. Just use moderate force. You'll feel it as you go in, and there will be a stopping point that you can tell where a good point is to leave it and not hit it any harder. Common hole sizes are 5/16 used by folks stringing tubing from tree to tree, or you can take the tubing and stick it into a bucket down below just to catch it. You can also hang from these 5/16. You can hang bags, or you can hang. You could put a bucket on it, but the bucket will probably fall off. But typically, a bucket, there's a 7/16 tap made specifically for buckets. It's an older size, but still is used a lot commonly with buckets for sap collection. And if you look at the next slide, there it shows taps. Up in the upper left-hand corner are some acrylic taps. The plastic taps are usually a one-time use. When you pull them out, you'll damage them and etc. So most of the time, once you use that plastic tap, you're done with it. On the right-hand side, upper right-hand side, is a bucket tap. That's a 7/16 inch size spout. Lower left side, you'll see a stainless spout that sticks out, and a little bit of sap dripping off of that one. Center slide on the bottom is where I've put some bags on a tree, so you can collect in bags. I've used pop bottles before and so on, but typically where I'm at anyway, and as you get going up into larger production, you probably want to string from tree to tree unless you really want to walk up and down through the hills carrying buckets all over the place, 5-gallon buckets in each hand. You want to string tubing and stuff. So I guess from there, we've collected sap. Now What do you do with it? Well, where are we at, Billy? On slide 5?
Number 5, slide 5.
Okay. Don't let your sap spoil. Keep in mind, you're going to get, on a good day, you can get as much as a gallon or 2 gallons of sap out of each tree. So you really got to get something done with this stuff. Treat sap like milk. It will spoil. It has microbes in it, and the microbes like sugar, and they'll eat the sugar to pieces out of your sap. And as they do, it produces some not toxic but nasty tasting stuff. So if you let these microbes go in warmer weather, they'll eat everything up, and you won't have much sugar left, and you'll have some nasty smelling sap. So like milk, temperatures above 50 degrees start getting iffy. Boil this stuff down as quick as possible, or get it on some ice, stick it in a cooler of some sort. But spoilage is a time temperature function, and you just need to get this stuff used up. Once you've figured out you've got the sap and everything's ready to do something with, you need something to boil the sap in to get to syrup stage. Use a pan with good surface area. You get a lot more evaporation out of it like that, and you don't need to spend near as much time boiling it down as opposed to a circular pan that's real tall. Don't use aluminum if you can avoid it. It's not approved in maple industry. These guys that make it commercial cannot use aluminum utensils. And if you just polish the aluminum off real good, you may get a metal taste out of the syrup that you've made. Set pans on a stable surface. Keep in mind it's boiling liquid. It's boiling at water temperature plus. Boil somewhere, preferably not in your kitchen unless you're just going to do a little bit of sap. You're going to get some vapors off, a lot of vapors off when you boil this stuff down. If you're boiling down 20, 30 gallons of sap, you're boiling off 19 to 29 gallons of water. And if you can imagine that amount of vapor in your kitchen, you're going to have condensate all over everything. So better to boil outside or in a building made for boiling sap down. You also might get a little bit of sticky residue on the stuff. Once you determine you're going to boil, you need a way to determine when you've got syrup. Remember, syrup is 66 to 68.9% sugar. Well, how do you tell that? Well, one method is temperature method. You boil until the syrup is 7.5 degrees above the boiling point of water in your area, at your elevation. I'm at an 840-foot elevation. My water here doesn't boil until it hit 211 degrees. Doesn't boil at 212. So I'll be boiling at 219.5 degrees to get syrup out of it. Another method is a refractometer. A refractometer is a device that you put a drop of the sap on, or the syrup onto a lens, and you look through the glass, or you look through a tube on this thing, and it casts a shadow based on the refractive index of what you've got on the surface of it. And they work pretty good. There's a little bit of learning curve to it. There's automatic devices, automatic refractometers that are easier to do. They're digital readouts, but they typically go up in the hundreds of dollars or $100+. The gold standard method, I guess, is the density method using a hydrometer. That's what the commercial guys use a lot to verify they've got good syrup. And if you look at the next slide, you'll see a candy thermometer, a refractometer, the kind of the manual refractometer, if you say, and typically a hydrometer. That the hydrometer you put into a tube with syrup in it, and it'll float to a specific point to tell you what the brick's reading is. So once you've got syrup, once you determine you got syrup, what are you going to do with it? Well, you can bottle it as is, bottle it while it's hot, certainly. You can bottle it as is without filtering, but there's always some particulates that precipitate out of syrup when you're boiling this stuff, and they're not the precipitates are not dangerous. You can eat it, ingest it. It doesn't hurt you, but it's like sand, and they call it sugar sand, and it's just kind of a gritty surface. It also makes your syrup cloudy, and it just doesn't look as good. So if you're going to sell the stuff or give it away, you like a nice clean syrup. So filtering would be good. If you do filter it, don't try to use coffee filters, cheesecloth, paper towels, et cetera, et cetera. They don't work good. I've tried them all. Buy yourself some good filters from a reputable maple syrup equipment supplier. If you filter it, you need to reheat it to between 180 and 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Once you pass it through the filter, or once it's reheated, and you put it in the bottles, turn the bottles or jars, if you put it in mason jars, turn everything upside down to kill off all the germs on the surface of the container that you're putting it into. Shelf life. There's not much that grows inside of maple syrup with the high sugar content that you have. Bottled in glass, properly bottled in glass, this stuff will last several years. I heard one instance somebody pull some off of a shelf that had been there for 20 years. I don't know. Maybe that's an old wives' tale. I don't know. But typically the USDA, I think, bottled stuff in glass is 2 years. Food safety people say 2 years maximum. If you put it in plastic bottles, it'll go for 2 years, but after a while it starts changing colors in plastic and maybe changes the flavor a little bit. If you put it in tin containers, use that stuff up within 6 months is the recommendations I've read about. If you open it, keep it refrigerated. Anytime you open anything, there's mold spores floating around all over in the air everywhere. You're going to get some mold spores in it, but if you keep it refrigerated, it's not going to grow. So if you open it, refrigerate it. That's about it, folks. What can I say? It's good stuff. It's one heck of a nice hobby. If you decide to make some, it's a delectable elixir called maple syrup. Enjoy it. The hobby can get really addictive. I started out with making a couple gallons, and next year I went to 5 gallons. Next year I went to 15 gallons, and that's kind of where I'm at now. So I've been doing it about 5 years, but it can be an addictive hobby, but it's really, really good stuff. That's about it.
All right, Jeff, that was good. Thank you so much. We see is that your new sugar house here on the right in your final slide?
That is my sugar house. Yeah, I went from boiling over in a pan on top of rocks to the in-between thing with the little barrel stove there to spending half my life this year building the sugar house.
So I think that John identified that condition at the very beginning of this show. I think he called it the
Yeah.
sugar bug, right? Jeff,
Yeah.
that was good. I appreciate it. In your story and your journey, I've been fortunate enough to see several others go through it too, right? As you said, once you kind of get into this, it can be kind of addictive, if you will, try to keep going with it. So no, that was a great presentation, Jeff. We appreciate you hanging with us and getting it through and sharing it with everybody as well. It was
Okay.
somebody did have a question. What is a good pan to use and where to buy? So I don't know if you had a comment on that, but I've seen a wide variety of pans used, and some more effective than others.
I've used the warming pans like in a big kitchen or something, that I don't know, 12, 14 inches wide by 20 inches long, that use stainless steel though. Don't try to just avoid aluminum. You can do that, that those come pretty easy. Enamel coated would probably be okay. I use them. You can do that, or you can go to somebody like Smoky Lake Maple and $500 order a big pan.
Right.
Anything in between.
Yeah, so yeah, that's one thing that again I think it's been really interesting about this is just how scalable it is, right? Based on your interest and your time and your money, how much you want to kind of invest in it and take it from there. So good stuff. Really nice presentation. We actually have I think Richard Hines is with us as well, and we've got Kentucky Maple Days coming up here, Jeff, on February 1st and 15th, and a number of you all are out there going to be hosting and. Richard does have some experience hosting, and I think you have as well. So, Richard, I didn't know if you'd like to join us and talk a little bit about your experience and making maple syrup, as well as being a host during Kentucky Maple Days.
How you doing, Billy? I finally got on this morning. A little bit of technical difficulty here
I
in
think it's just the
Mexico.
weather. Everything's just real
Oh,
cold.
yeah,
Yeah,
just the
it
weather.
slows stuff down.
That's it. I like what Jeff said. It is an addictive hobby. I started out my first year. I'd retired. I was sitting here. It was the middle of the winter, and I was looking at some maple trees along the creek, and I thought, well, I wonder if I could make some maple syrup. And the first year, I made a quart. And, I think I collected like 25 or 30 gallons of sap. And last year I had about 1,500 gallons of sap that I boiled down. So
That's a big jump there.
yeah. And like Jeff, I started out, I didn't use rocks, Jeff. I used concrete blocks. We're a little bit more modern and
I love it.
built the fire up and I used the warming pans, like you said, cooked in those. And my youngest son is a facility manager for a national park, and my oldest son was an engineer on a boat in the Coast Guard. So they came home and decided I needed something a little bit better. So I have a large sugar shack now that's big enough to have a party in. So yeah, and that's where we have our Maple Day, and we have everybody show up. We're going to be open the 1st, and we're going to try 2 days this year. We're going to be open on the 15th as well. I don't know if anybody's said anything about it or not, but our sap collection is going pretty slow. It was 4 below here yesterday morning. I think we're up to 9 right now. There's not a lot of sap moving right now, so
There's not much moving right now,
yeah,
Richard.
yeah, it's really really slow. So it's a good thing I did too. But we're going to start out. We're going to try to have the Maple Day. We did our first Maple Day 4 years ago, and we didn't really know what to expect. And I think we had 10 or 15 people show up. Last year we had 48 at our Maple Day. And we try to get everybody up in the woods, let them see. Now, I do have a few buckets that I collect in along the trail if I'm going from point A to point B. But like most everybody, I've gone to tubing now, and I have main lines that run everything off the hill, and it saves a lot of walking, a lot of time, and that's good. And it's well worth the effort to go ahead and put the tubing out if you can. And so I'm going to take all the visitors up, let them see the tube set up. My youngest son will be here from Tennessee. My oldest son will be here from Texas. Both of them are going to be up in the woods, actually tapping some additional trees So when our visitors show up on the 1st, I'll be taking care of the boiling. I've got another friend that'll be helping keep the fire maintained while I talk to everybody, and you'll get to see that and go up in the woods, and my sons will be up there and actually be pulling tubing and identifying trees, and they'll actually be working the woods. So when you come up there, they're going to add some additional taps to us this year. And we're going to try to, I think after all said and done, I hope to be up around 250 taps this year. Now, we had 2 big windstorms this year, and I lost 6 of my good producers. Six trees went down, and so it hurt us. So we've had to readjust lines, main lines, and everything, kind of compensate for all that. So we've been a little slow starting up this year. So I'm actually going to be out tomorrow, and I'm going to let it warm up just a little bit more, and
Yeah.
try to get a few more trees tapped. But I'm behind this year. I think I'm behind about 2 weeks what I normally run. So
Well, we know life happens, Richard, right?
yeah, that's
For
it.
all of us, right? And we're all kind of doing the best we can given what we've got. But, you're out in Metcalfe County, but we've got folks, that are going to be hosting sites all across the state. And I think you bring up a really good point. One of the things I get so excited about maple syrup production is when it occurs, right? It's a wonderful time to get people out to farms and get them, kind of connected into nature. To me, it's one of the best agritourism events, that we can do here in Kentucky at a time when there's not a lot of other agricultural activities going on. It's a chance to really highlight what our woods and farms can produce here in the state. So, folks, I will strongly encourage you, if you've not been to any of these Maple Day host sites and learned about maple syrup production and get your hands on some of this product, make your plans to do so now. February 1st and 15th, you got 2 options. We've got a number of producers that are hosting across the state. Some are doing on the 1st, some are the 15th, some are doing both. So it varies a little bit. We do have a map that we can share with everybody, and you can check out and kind of plan your events. But, Richard, I think it's so good that you all are willing to kind of share. And I think it's back to what we were talking about earlier. It's a very sharing group, these maple syrup producers here in Kentucky and the region. And it's a great way to kind of learn about a really, really neat process of utilizing our woods in a way different way.
Yeah, when you show up, I've got one of my pans that one of the boys made for me. They felt sorry for me using the little serving tray or the serving pans that you see at the restaurant, and I've been using those. So one of the boys welded a stainless steel pan up, and I used that. As a matter of fact, our first Maple Day, we were boiling in that pan over concrete blocks. So now I have a nice evaporator. And I'd actually intended to be sitting in the sugar shack right now, but since it's 9 degrees and the wind's whipping through there, I'm staying in the house today. But if y'all want to see the evaporator we have now, you can see it. And by the way, the pan that I used originally, the larger pan, which was about 4 feet by not quite 2 feet wide, I could run about 40 to 50 gallons a day of sap through that. Took the better part of that. If it wasn't raining or windy, okay, that reduces your time. The evaporator that I've got now, I can crank up to about 400 gallons a day through that if I really keep it going.
That's some production there, Richard, for sure.
Yeah, nowhere near what they're doing up north.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's different, right? And, we do have some different challenges down here in the more southern range of maple syrup production. But, I have tasted some of the maple syrup here in Kentucky, and it is just as good as any maple syrup you can get anywhere in the world, if not better.
Oh, absolutely.
And if
Yeah.
you're a Kentuckian, you'll think it tastes better anyway. Trust me on that one. So it's good stuff for sure. And y'all make some really other cool products too out there. Not only maple syrup, many of you all out there have other kind of maple related products that are available for sampling and purchase as well.
That's right, Billy. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
I didn't know when you wanted me to segue in.
Hey, you're good, man. Hey, we're just talking about sweet stuff here.
Exactly. So some of the information you stole my thunder that I was going to speak about, but it's okay.
All right. Well, sorry about that, John, but tell us what's up, man.
Hey, Billy, I wanted to share this video with
All right.
everybody so they can watch,
I
if
think
that's
it'd be great.
okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then let me share my screen here. You see the video?
Yep, and can hear it.
We've been here 8 years. We've got a total of 219 acres. Right now, we've got 219 taps out at this time. That's probably 185 or 86 trees. I started out with buckets on trees, and the first year, about 7 years ago, we thought, let's try to make some maple syrup. So we tapped 8 or 9 trees down in front of the house.
We started because we went to the extension office in Butler County for a woodlands training course, and they talked about what to do with your woods besides cut them down. And one of the things they said was make maple syrup, and that was around 2010. We just did a few trees the first year, and the second year we got up to about a dozen trees, and then my husband said, let's get an evaporator. And that's when we did all of this with all of these lines.
I have 4.5 acres total, 3 of it's wooded, and I've got 350 taps and 120 trees. Most of my trees are 50 years old. They're over 20-inch diameter. They'll take 3 taps. I started out with 2 taps, turkey fryer and a roasting pan, and being a food manufacturer in a commercial kitchen on my little property, that is something, if you'd have told me 15 years ago, I'd have told you to find a doctor. You need help.
Right here where our house and everything is, we own about 3 acres. We grow the red raspberries and I grow the tame blackberries. And I was looking to get into something else, you know, when all this is out of season and everything. I was at a guy's house one day, he had a pan out there, steam coming up, and I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm making maple syrup. I said, you can't make maple syrup in Kentucky. He said, you just watch me. Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting and something that that is here. It's in the trees, you know. Like, people have the misconception of maple syrup coming from the northeast, especially Canada. You know, I thought, well, heck, why can't we make it in Kentucky? There's no sugar maples here on our property. No red, no silver, no sugar. So what I do, the people that have the sugar maple trees, I give them a bottle of syrup for letting me go on their property and get the tree sap. The window of opportunity in this area typically is the 1st of January to the end of February. Sometimes you can go to the first week of March. I just watch the buds on the sugar maple trees. When the buds start to swell, that's when I quit. Last year I was somewhere around 1,200 gallons of sap. This year I'm a little ahead of that. You know, if the weather cooperates and the averages all work out and everything.
I got black maple tapped, red maple, and sugar maple. And I think the first year we got 1.5 quarts of syrup maybe and had it in the fridge. We loved it. We are not getting the amount of sap this year that I did last year. And it's due to the weather. Probably about 600 gallons of sap so far.
Where we live, this size operation is about right for the weather. It took us 65 gallons of sap, 65 gallons of sap to make 1 gallon of syrup, and we made about 25 gallons of sap. So close to 2,000 gallons of sap.
I do have, like I say, I do haul in sap from my leased properties. That's how I'm able to make 400 gallons a year. I started out with a 10 by 12 building and just had a homemade evaporator pan. It was a flat pan divided with 4 dividers. I would trickle sap in with that 65-gallon head tank, and you had to regulate it by hand. I didn't have a float. And as it cooked down, I could draw it off. And I bottled it in one of them 100-cup coffee pots. That was where I began.
It is a family affair. My daughter that's been zipping around here, she was 13, 14 years old when we started doing this, and now she's a married mother. And she came back to help us today to make sure that we could see all of our visitors. I don't know, maybe there's a historical portion to it also, but it's turned out to be a fun thing to do. And this year, all the trees that were on the buckets and the bags, my grandkids did. You meet a lot of people, and I would say that's half of the fun, is things like this where people come out to your farm, because people come out all the time and just stop by and they say, well, can we see your maple syrup stuff? Sure. It's a good activity for something that not everybody's doing. I do enjoy going out to Ag Day and teaching out there and telling the kids how to do it and showing people you can do this on your own.
I'm a wildlife biologist by trade. I'm retired and started doing this strictly as a hobby. And a lot of what I've learned, I've had to research myself and find out. There's not a lot of people in this part of the world that have made maple syrup. It's a lot of trial and error.
It's just such a unique thing. People will taste the L'Orange or the vinaigrette, and those are my creations. It's just been wonderful. It's fun, filled with opportunities. I've met so many people just over the last 4 years. I've probably talked face to face with a couple of million people. I feel like they get something out of it. They get introduced to maple being more than for pancake syrup.
We had a really successful Maple Day. It was our 4th year to do it, and I believe our count yesterday were 36 visitors, and that's pretty good. We had a few regulars, neighbors stop by. Anytime I'm boiling and they see steam coming out of the shed, folks stop by and check it out, you know. People are getting used to seeing us doing it here.
This year, we've had probably 30 groups of people come through today, which has been a nice group, a nice day.
We had over 300 people. People showed up. I didn't even know they'd ever heard of me. And even last year, we had somebody from Cadiz that drove out to South Down Farm in eastern Kentucky. They spent the night, saw their operation Saturday morning last year, and then drove out here and spent the afternoon looking at our operation.
The first year, didn't know what to expect, how many people would show up. The first year I had approximately 65 people. I sell out. I sell everything that I make. One year I did make maple candy, sold all that. One year last year I made maple cream. I love that, but anyway, I sold out. And I'm just glad that the Forestry Department does this, because it highlights Kentucky and the maple syrup industry. And I'm glad they do that. I hope they continue doing it. It helps me out a lot.
All right.
Yeah, it was awesome. Good stuff.
Yes, that's a great video. I believe Billy and your team put together at Maple Days a few years ago, and that is on not only I believe your website, but on our website as well. I guess can you still see my screen, or are we looking at each other?
We're looking at each other right now.
Okay. Can I share my screen one more time?
You sure can.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, I'll let everybody know I did drop in the the chat a link to the North American Maple Syrup Producers Manual. If you're curious about maple syrup production, there's a great resource there for you.
So I want to show you our website, our great website that we've been updating. Got a lot of great information on here. So this is the homepage. If you're interested in becoming a member, whether you're just starting out or you've been doing it for a long time, you can join right here under membership, under events. Definitely go to this tab. And then the first thing that comes up is Kentucky Maple Days. So here's the video that I just played. But if you scroll on down, you'll see Maple Days, February 1st and February 15th. Last year, the KMSA board decided to have Maple Days be a 2-day event in February, only because the weather is so crazy in February around our state. A few years ago, half the state was covered in ice for Maple Days, and half the state was not covered in ice. So Maple Days, kind of half the state participated and half wasn't able to. So we chose 2 dates to give our producers an option to what day they want to participate in. But like I said, if you scroll on down, this is the map that Billy mentioned earlier. So these are all the individual producers that are participating. And this is also on UK's forestry website under maple syrup. But this is the list of who's participating. And like if you click on, this is out in Pikeville, Hemlock Lodge Farm. I'm sorry, they're going to participate on February the 15th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And they show some of the products that they're going to have available. But you see there's about 15 or 16 producers right now. We got a few more that I'm in contact with that are going to be adding in the next day or two. I believe Boone County Extension Office, they're going to be open, maybe Kenton County, and another gentleman over in Pike County as well. So this list is going to grow a little bit longer. So make sure you check back at our list before you decide to go out on February the 1st or 15th and see who's going to be open that day. Let me stop sharing my screen now.
No, that's a great resource, John. So, and I will tell you, folks, if you want to get your hands on some Kentucky maple syrup, this is really kind of your only window to do so, right? Most of these producers sell out everything they make about as quick as they produce it. So if you want to get your hands on Kentucky maple syrup, make sure you visit all of these farms on February 1st and 15th and buy everything they have, okay? Because this will be your only chance to really get it for this year, unless you're just lucky. It's amazing to me the demand for this product that's out there. It's lovely, it really is, and people really appreciate just how good of a product it is.
Exactly.
I had a guy come up last Maple Day and wanted 2 cases of it. So there you go.
I'm telling you, people, it will sell out. They will sell out all they produce just as quick as they can bottle it. They really will. So if you want to get your hands on it, you all need to get with your family. Go ahead and call your family right now. Make your plans on all who you're going to go visit, and make sure you bring your checkbook, and you'll be really well rewarded for it for sure. And it's a great time. You get out, you get a chance to meet some of these wonderful producers. They'll show you their operations. You get to sample stuff. I mean, honestly, get the family out there and enjoy this opportunity to see Kentucky's woods and get some really sweet product.
Exactly. And right now, the long-term forecast looks to be in the upper 40s on that Saturday for February the 1st. So we're going to hopefully have some good weather this year. The weather's been a little cold lately, so not everybody may have syrup available the first day, but it's still a great educational day to be able to learn how it's done. And go back again on the 15th if they're open and buy syrup if they have it then. Yeah. But I know some of our producers are going to have some of their extra products that they make with their maple syrup as well that day. Maple syrup is like any other ag product. It's all dependent strictly on the weather. And in Kentucky, our weather is quite strange. So
it is, yes. Yeah, if you don't like it, just wait a few minutes. It'll change. Hey, but guys, a great show today. Really appreciate you all and appreciate all your hard work into the Kentucky Maple Syrup Association. I know each of you all have given a lot of your time and your expertise to that organization, and we want you all to be as successful as possible so that we can all enjoy this wonderful product that we can produce right here in Kentucky's woodlands. So thank you all for being on From the Woods today. We certainly appreciate having you all, and good luck making some good syrup out there.
Thank you, Billy.
All right. All right, everyone. We'll
Thank you,
look
Bill.
forward. Yeah, good to have you all. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody next week on From the Woods Today. And you know, John and Richard and Jeff, really appreciate your all's time today. It was a good presentation, and hopefully we will get Maple Days loaded with all the visitors here across the Kentucky, getting some of that great product that you all produce.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Take care, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week on From the Woods Today.
From the woods today. From the woods today.